felt like he was speaking to me. And then to my surprise, he started walking my way. You get a little nervous because you don't know what he's going to do or what he's going to say to you. You just try to follow what he's going to say. So he gets into my boat and he says, can you just push out a little bit? And he started to talk to this crowd. And all I could do was sit and listen in awe because of the way he spoke was unlike anything I'd ever heard before. And when he was done, he said, hey, Peter, let's go out a little further. Let's put your nets out. And I thought he was crazy because I just had the worst day of fishing in my life. And I said, we've been out all day. We didn't catch anything. But because you say so, because I believe in who you are, and I'll do whatever you ask me, I'll go out. You will never believe the amount of fish we caught that day. It was so heavy we couldn't even fit it all in the boat, and as we put them in, we started to sink. And the only thing that I could do was to get down on my face before him and say, Lord, leave me, because I'm a sinner, and you shouldn't be in my presence. It's amazing that of all the people that Jesus could have chose first, out of all the people who could follow him, who could do a better job, who spoke better than me, who weren't as dirty or smelly as me, because I'm a fisherman, we kind of stink. He came to me and said, Peter, I need you to follow me. And from this day, you won't fish for fish anymore. Instead, you are going to fish for people. I need you to think about this for yourself. If God would send Jesus to this world to send a message and to share a message, and he chose people to give it out, the first ones he chose were 3 ragtag fishermen. 3 guys who didn't have the right words, who probably weren't living the right lives. But he chose us. And we didn't have to think much to drop what we were doing and to follow him. The story begins with a call from Jesus. The story begins with our hearts being open to a message that we didn't think would ever come our way. And it started with an acceptance. And we followed. That didn't mean we had it all figured out. It didn't even mean that we believed in everything that he was sharing with us yet. But it was our beginning. And from our beginning, great things happen. We're going to sing another couple of songs, and then we're going to be talking about
like being on the water.
To really believe.
But a lot of the stories I'm going to share with you today involve being on or off of a boat.
When we really started to understand who Jesus was, you think it would have came earlier, but we're kind of dense. We've seen miracles, we've seen him teach, we've seen him do all these things, but we still didn't really grasp everything. And even after these stories, we were still trying to figure him out. But for me, Peter, I really started to see the majesty of who Jesus was in a couple of events. And the first one was, after a long day, we set out onto the water. We're pushed out pretty far. And as we get out, winds and waves start to pick up. And we get a little frantic. And we get a little crazy. We're running around trying to figure out what we need to do. We're scooping out the water. We're bracing ourselves. We're putting down the sails. We're trying to find a way to not capsize and sink. And as we're running around crazy trying to figure out what's going on, we couldn't find where Jesus was. And we look around, and there he is, sleeping. What person in their right mind could sleep through that kind of a storm? But if we had the faith that we should have known wherever Jesus is, our protection will be there too. So we wake him up. And like any normal person, we say, "What are you doing?" I just want to make sure that you were paying attention. Wake up! Do you want us to die? Isn't that a silly question? Would Jesus say, yes? Of course not. You have little faith. He stands up and he says, be still. And like that, the lightning, the winds, the clouds, everything stops and calms. Like there was never even a trace of a storm. And we looked at each other. We couldn't believe who this man was. That even the winds and the waves would obey his commands. We even started to mumble between us, who is this? Really, who is this? That as he speaks, even nature listens to him. It's amazing to think that we were in the presence of such greatness. We saw the miracles, we saw all these things, but we've heard about those stories before. The prophets and all these who could do that, but to be in the presence of one who can stop the winds. We were in awe of his majesty. Now, something very similar to this was happening too. We were teaching and we were following Christ, and he set us out before him and he said, guys, why don't you push out and I'll catch up with you. And we found out later that he went up to pray, and we were a ways out when he was done, and we were in the boat and it was getting a little choppy out there, and we look out and we see a figure. Some of us, a little scared, thought it might have been a ghost. Didn't know what to think of it until we heard his words where he said, peace, do not be afraid. I don't know if you know much about me, but I'm kind of an impulsive guy. I kind of make decisions without really thinking them through. And that's why I think a lot of us can relate to my story, where we're a little bold and a little brazen, and we think that we can handle a lot until we're put to the test, and we start to realize the gravity of what we got ourselves into. And so I, like, any macho fisherman, actually I was the only one, everybody else was kind of scared. I said, Lord, I got to take advantage of this opportunity. If this is really you, let me come out and walk with you. You think I would have felt comfortable after that first step. And as I started to walk towards him, I couldn't believe what I was doing. Until a little bit of wind picked up. Until a little bit of adversity started to come my way, and I took my eyes off of Jesus. And let me tell you, that water gets cold pretty quick when you start to fall. All I could say was, God, Lord, help me, pull me out, save me. And he reached out and he pulled me up. You of little faith, Peter. Why don't you trust me? There's got to be a time for you where you felt that boldness. Jesus, if that's you in front of me, just put me out and I will walk on this rough water. I will get through whatever is in front of me until you take your eyes off of him and you start to sink. But when he picked me up and he pulled me out of my deep water, out of my struggle, out of my spiritual ADD, and put me on a boat, at that moment, from there on, I knew exactly who was in front of me. And I was amazed by his power. Jesus, the one who can calm the storm, can walk on the water. The one that can see me in my struggles can pull me out. The one who can see me in all of my inadequacies can see potential to do great things for him. I started to believe more and more as I journeyed with him. But my doubt and my sin problem, they never really went away. But Christ and his love and his faithfulness would never go away either. We're going to continue a story in a moment to talk about a life that even through our darkest hours, even when Christ is going to tell us we're going to struggle, he's still willing to take a cross for you. He's still willing to do so much to make sure that you have a chance to be with him. We're going to sing another song, and we're going to get ready to hear a story about how our sin gets in the way and puts a Christ on a cross. But ultimately, that willingness is to set us free from our sins. Let's sing a song.